This is another book video. This is my summer wrap up. As you can see, I had a great summer. The first book I read was Daisy Hates, and I read like the first Magnolia book somewhere in the middle of the school year, so like there was a kind of a time frame between reading this one and the first one. I think I might be a Daisy Hates fan more than a Magnolia Parks fan. I just like loved her more than I liked Magnolia. Like I found Magnolia and BJ like so annoying, but I loved Daisy and is it Christian? We're gonna go with Christian. I loved them more than I liked BJ and Magnolia, and I just kind of liked the plot of this one more. Like it felt like more was going on, you know. So I rated this one a 4 out of 5. The next one I did was Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I audiobooked this on like my drive from like places. Like when I was driving around, I would listen to this audiobook. I liked the first one better than the second one. Like I had to audiobook the first one and the second one because they were like too textbooky to me, and there was a British person reading it to me and it was like a British story. So that got me through it, and I liked like the voice of the person reading it to me. I did only rate this a 3-star. And then this is where I started my Throne of Glass journey. I tried to read this series last summer and I started with Throne of Glass. I could not get into it. Like I bought the book and then I had like, I maybe got to, I don't know, 25% through, and I was like, this is not comparing to ACOTAR. I finished the last book in ACOTAR and I tried to get into this because I loved ACOTAR so much, but I could not get into Throne of Glass. I tried to listen to the audiobook once I got to like 25% of actually reading it, and I hated it. I hated the audiobook, so gave up. I was like, maybe this won't be my series, like I'll do it later. So then this summer, after I read ACOTAR and then Crescent City, I was like, all right, I liked both of them. I'm going to give it another chance. Like everyone raves about it. So then this time, instead of starting with Throne of Glass, I started with Assassin's Blade. Because I was like, maybe I'm not connected to the character enough yet. So that's what I did. I read Assassin's Blade first, and some people might think that's a bad idea. I think this was an amazing choice on my part because I couldn't get into it when I started with Throne of Glass, but I got so into it when I started with Assassin's Blade. I love it. Like the short little stories of bringing in like all of these different characters that don't actually like get brought into the book till like later in the series. I freaking loved it. And people say like if you read it first you're gonna forget everything. I didn't forget a single thing. I knew every little character that was in this book that was brought back in and like mentioned and stuff and had a part in the series. I gave this one a 4.25. After that, immediately started reading the rest of the series. So I read Throne of Glass. This one I did get through. I think I read about 50% of it, and then I was so into it that I was like, I need to listen to it because just reading it after work was not enough for me. So then I would like listen to the audiobook throughout the day and read it at nighttime. Like I don't know how I didn't finish this or why I didn't connect the first time, but I think it's probably because I read this one first and then this one. So I was invested. So I did give this one a 4.5 stars. So close to a 5-star, but not quite there. So that was great. Anyway, after that, moved on to the next book, Crown of Midnight. I loved the continuation of what was happening and where it was going and figuring everything out. But it like wasn't a super significant thing for me. Like this book doesn't stand out to me. Because I kind of knew what was happening, it didn't hit as hard. So, like, that's probably why it's not super significant to me, because I knew what was going to happen. Loved it. Still rated it a 4-star. Then I went to Heir of Fire. This is the one where she, like, was somewhere else. New characters were coming in, which I freaking loved. I don't know why, but I think maybe those characters were, like, boring me, and I needed some more characters. It was giving me more ACOTAR vibes when this book, like, came in, so that's probably why. I'm pretty sure I gave this one 5 stars. I did. I gave this one a 5 stars. This one was my favorite. But then, sadness. I only had these books. Like, I had these ones on hand. I didn't have the rest of the series. So after that one, I started listening to this audiobook because I didn't have this physical copy yet. So I started listening to this audiobook. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Then I started reading the physical copy once it came, but I was basically done listening to it by the time the physical copy came because I ordered it. Not sure why I didn't order the rest of the series when I ordered this one, but I didn't. So, read this one. I gave this one a 5-star also, but because I listened to an audiobook, I can't fully remember what really happened. Oh, yes. See, I wasn't into like some of the new characters that were coming into this book as much as I was into the characters coming into this book. But these 2 books were my favorite when I read like the first half. These 2 were the best. And then, because I was dumb and didn't order the rest of the series, I was like, okay, I know that it's going to hit harder if I physically read the books instead of like listening to them. So I stopped. I paused reading this series, started reading something else, and I listened to the audiobook of Funny Story. Emily Henry's first book, Happy Place, wasn't as much of a hit for me as I think it would have been if I read it physically, but I like 50% listened to it, 50% read it. And it didn't hit for me. So when I read this one, I didn't go in with high expectations, so I audiobooked it because I didn't think I'd be able to read it. I loved it. I love Funny Story more than Happy Place. Like, I liked the 2 characters' just life stories more, and like the plot of this one. I liked how she was a librarian. I don't know what it is about like characters in books being librarians, but I love it. And then I also just liked how Miles, I don't know who, I think it was Sarah Caroli, compared Miles to Nick from New Girl, and I love Nick and Jess from New Girl. Love them. And that's the vibe I got. So I gave this one a 4.5. So then after that, went to the bookstore, saw this. I didn't even know it was out yet, but I saw it at Walmart. Got it. I read this in 2 days. And this is not my favorite series. Like, I couldn't even physically read Powerless. Like, I had to audiobook it. So then when I got to this one, I was like, oh, I'm not going to like the novella. I was kind of right. Like, I only gave this a 3 stars. Like, it was good because I liked Adina. I like Adina. And I loved how she got her little novella. I still bawled my eyes out, but it's like, it was only a 3 for me because I knew what was going to happen, and that was hard to read, knowing what was going to happen. And after Powerful, Reckless wasn't out yet, so I didn't read the second book. I listened to half of To Sir Philip with Love, and then ordered this. This is like a huge book. Like, I don't know why it's so big. And like the words also are huge. Like, I feel like I was reading like in elementary school level. For To Sir Philip with Love, wasn't super into, like, I didn't really like how Eloise's story turned out. Like, she's my favorite character in the movies. Like, I love Eloise in the movies, but in the book, I don't like her as much, so I only gave that one 3 stars. And then When He Was Wicked was Francesca's story? Yeah, it's Francesca's story. And I'm like not a big fan of Francesca's story at all, mostly because the struggles that she's going through in that book, like, I cannot relate to at all. So like, it wasn't like I didn't get attached. I also just didn't like the love interest. That one was like a 2.75. It's in His Kiss is Hyacinth's story. I love this. So Lady Danbury, I love Lady Danbury's character, and she was more in this book, and I loved her relationship with Hyacinth. I thought it was so cute. And then like just Hyacinth falling in love with Gareth when she fell in love with Gareth, I was like, oh, I freaking love this. And I loved their plotline, like just what they did in the book. I gave it a 4.5. I loved it. So I was really into the Bridgerton books at this point, and I was like, I gotta read the last one, which is On the Way to the Wedding. 5-star. This was almost my favorite book of the whole series. Like, I love Gregory's story. It's all like the little interactions that happened between the best friend and Gregory. I loved it. I love a friends to lovers though. So like Penelope and Colin's story really was cute to me. I loved it. So, and then after I was on a Bridgerton kick, I was like, all right, I have no idea what to read. I didn't have any books at this point. Like, the only one I had in my book, like physical TBR to read, was Magnolia Parks, like the second one, and I was not feeling that one. So I listened to The Midnight Library because my mom had it on Audible, I think. Yeah. And I didn't think I was gonna like this at all. Like, I heard good things about it, but then like the start of it kind of threw me off because I didn't read the back at all. Just went into it. The start of it threw me off, and I was like, oh, this is like a depressing book. Like, what? Like, hello? I don't want to read this. So I just continued to listen to it. I loved it. I gave it a 5-star. I just was so in love, just like the concept of what was happening, like going into the library and experiencing everything, all for like, to just realize, it gave me like an eye-opening experience. Was like, what do I want in my life? Like, how do I want my life to be? Like, if I could go into the Midnight Library and like pick out books and experience every different life, like, what would I do differently? What would I choose? And I was like, oh my gosh, this was crazy. Never had a book that did that to me. So once I listened to that one, I went to Walmart because this one came out. This second book in Powerless. I hate to say it, but this series I don't think is for me because I heard not great things about this one, that it was like supposed to be a bridging book, but like you should still make it entertaining. Was not entertaining. I couldn't read it. I had to audiobook listen to it to like get through it. I only gave it a 2.5. Like if this was a series that I was absolutely in love with, and then the second book was like a bridging book and just wasn't hitting, I'd maybe rate it higher. But because I don't love this series and what's going on in it, I'm like, I couldn't get into this book at all. Like nothing happened until literally the last chapter. Nothing significant happened. Like there was no plot, is what I hear a lot of people saying, which is so true. There was no plot in this book. It was all just banter back and forth. And to be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of this banter. Like, anyway, 2.5 stars. Finally, the rest of this series came in. So, I did do the tandem read. I did it. This took me so long to get through. Like, these 2 books took me a full month to get through the tandem read. Because, like, sometimes I would listen to a little bit at work if I, like, had time. But I couldn't do that with the tandem read, so I could only have, like, after work to read, which wasn't, like, a whole lot of time. And then sometimes on the weekends, but I was super busy on the weekends. So this book took me so long. And this one, love. I give it a 4.75 because it wasn't a 5-star, but I loved the characters that were in this one, the stories that were happening more. Like, I felt like more was happening throughout the whole book in this one. And I just liked the characters in this book more than I liked the characters in this one. So, like, there was a point where I was like, I don't think I want to do tandem read anymore. I just want to finish reading this one. But then I was like, no. I'm going to finish it. And it was weird because whenever I felt like there was a little bit of a lull in this book picked up and I found myself wanting to read this one. But then I would like get kind of bored of this one because I liked these characters more and would want to like read about these ones. This one would pick up again. So I'm glad I did the tandem read because I rated this one 4.75, like I said. And then I think I rated this one a 4 stars. Yeah, like this was a 4 stars because I didn't like the character as much. Like I felt like more connected to those characters. But I loved how a character from Assassin's Blade was in this one and how much of a story she got. And I loved that. Like I loved her character. I loved Chaol's story. I wasn't like into Nesrin's part of it as much, even though I felt like they did more for the plot than Chaol and is it Yrenne? Yeah, like I just felt like they did a little more up until the very end when everything kind of went down. I liked that part. 4 star. Then after Tower of Dawn, read Kingdom of Ash. I gave this one a 5 star because like the whole series in itself was just so amazing and everything kind of came to a close in this, and it was like so sad to be reading this book. Like there were obviously sad parts, happy parts, like hard parts to read where I was like no and just like all of it coming together was so sad that I was finally finishing this series. 5 star series. It was my Throne of Glass series summer. Obsessed. After that, I was like in a book hangover. I couldn't find anything to read for like 2 weeks. Like I don't think I read anything for 2 weeks. Then went to the bookstore and got a bunch of books. Picked up this one because I didn't know, like I heard good things about it and I wanted a quick summer read to finish her all off. I gave this book a 3.5. I would have rated it higher if I didn't read it after Throne of Glass because I was in such a book hangover that nothing was like hitting me, and I didn't want to start reading this because I was like, I want to read fantasy. I'm into fantasy, so like I didn't give this one as much of a chance. But I still really loved the story that was happening. Like I loved how in the part 1 of the book it went from then to now, so you get like their relationship in the past, then the relationship in the future. And I also liked how the relationship like didn't start or happen in the middle of the book and the rest of it just kind of fell flat and like dull. I liked when they got back together and the point of the book. Like I really liked that. So that's all the books that I read this summer. Thanks for watching.
Bye.